Ladder shelves are a great way to build a bespoke piece of furniture to utilise difficult wall or corner spaces. So let's have a look how we make this stylish yet rustic ladder shelf. So we're going to be using this lovely European waney edge oak that we now sell in B&Q. But you don't have to use that, you can use anything you want. You could use pine, you could use MDF. So we've got 4 pieces for the shelves, 2 of which we've had to join to make them wide enough, but I'll get back into that a bit later. We've got 2 legs cut out of the same stuff, and we've got these shelf supports. And on each shelf support, you'll see we've angled it away. That's the front edge, so that you're not looking directly onto a square edge. We're going to need a selection of screwdriver bits, countersink bit, pencil, tape measure, hammer, a plane, spirit level, drill, screwdriver, screws, sliding bevel, combination square, wood glue, selection of drill bits, and some sandpaper. So this is the first job, to determine the angle of our shelf unit. And the way we did this is we leaned one of the legs up against the wall to enable us to get that angle there. Now that's a bit tricky because we've already done it. So I thought I'd take this scrap of wood here. And if you think that's the leg, what would happen is we'd just have a big gap here and a corner sitting on the wall, and it could slide away. We used the sliding bevel, we pushed it down to the floor, we locked that off, and that has now given us our angle for the bottom, but also that will be the angle for all the shelves to make sure they're perfectly level. Now we need to take this leg, drop it on top of the other leg, and mark and cut that one so they're both exactly the same. Now, what we need to do is to determine where we're going to have our shelves. Now, as I said before, we don't need to be uniform. We've decided to go uniform and different equal spacings, but you can do what you want. What we need to do now is to work out the length of our shelf supports. And the way we did that, we've got the leg in position on the wall with the angle cut at the bottom. We've marked our shelf positions on using the sliding bevel because we know that's the right angle. Where these lines are is exactly where our shelves will be. So we need our shelf supports to sit underneath those lines for the shelves to sit onto. And the way we found the length is we actually measured from the wall to the front of the leg, to the front of the leg. We made a note of those measurements, and we transferred them onto this inch by inch oak that we pre-cut. We did on the bottom one cut out for around the skirting board, which is really important. That just gives that wide shelf a bit more support. So let's go and look and get them screwed on. So what we're doing now is we're actually fixing the shelf supports to the leg. We fixed one there, but before we actually fix them, what I did was I actually pre-drilled them where they will screw into the leg, and then I used a countersink bit to actually countersink the hole. It just stops any risk of the wood splitting. And then we countersunk and drilled pilot holes through the bottom. This is where the screws will go to fix the shelf to the supports. Well, before we fix them on, we are going to be using some wood glue. This will just make it nice and strong. So that's all the shelf supports on both legs, nice and solid, safe as houses. So now we need to determine the length of the shelves, so let's work that out. I want my shelves to be that length. I'm going to go for an extra 25mm on the end just to give it an overlap. It just makes it look that little bit better. So if I measure that bottom shelf, it's 460mm plus another 25mm. That's 485mm. So that's for the bottom shelf. Now, because the bottom shelf's so wide, we are going to have to join 2 pieces together. So let's have a look how we're going to do that. Now we've got our 4 shelves, and that's the bottom one. And that's a good joint, you can't even see where that is. So I'll use the top 2 shelves as an example of how we did that. So with the top 2 shelves, and if it wasn't such a good edge, we'd use a planer to plane a nice, flat, smooth edge. We'd put these onto a flat surface. We're going to fill that with wood glue. We push them together like so. Then underneath the shelf, which is going to be the underside, we'd screw 2 blocks onto there, 2 screws in each. We'd take a G-clamp and we'd just clamp them up until the joint became nice and tight. Then we would transfer that straight over to the shelving unit, fix it onto the shelving unit, and that'll keep the shelves nice and flat. And if we give it a good sanding after, the dust from the sanding will fall into the joint, mix with the wood glue, and you'll have a seamless joint. So let's fix these to the shelving unit. For a bit of security, to stop it sliding away, we're going to attach an angle bracket at the top here, and we're going to actually hide the angle bracket behind the shelf. I'll show you what I mean. Just put a mark on the wall. We'll move the ladder unit away. We'll put that in line with the mark on the wall. Now we need to screw that to the wall. If you are going to be screwing into walls, please check for pipes and cables. Be really careful. Right, okay, we're ready to hang the ladder unit. So there you go, solid as a rock. Get your ornaments on, or perhaps you could leave it like this or give it a coat of something like Danish oil. Be creative. All the tools and products I've used are available at B&Q stores.